Welcome back to the Meaningful Success Podcast. My name is Siah, and this is my big dad, Wade. He's a big man with a big heart.
5'6".
How are you doing this week?
I'm doing fine. Had a little bit of allergy last week, but it's kind of getting better now, so that's good.
Yeah, I've had some allergies going on too. It's just that time of year. What is your win?
My win this week is I have found a mover. I was kind of worried about that for a while because we've done so many of our moves on our own and where we're packing our own truck and driving our own truck and that kind of stuff. And
I think literally maybe one time ever in my life have we had a mover.
There's been one or two others when my company was moving us and they were paying the tab, but
those are when I was really little.
You were really, really little. But for most of the time it's been us. But I have found a mover who's going to load the truck, drive the truck, do all that kind of stuff. And they're reasonable price. And so far I've been really impressed with their courtesy. So I'm excited about that.
Good. And my win is not going to sound like a win, but it kind of is. And that is I have decided like 90%, 95% that I need to start my book over that I've been writing.
Wait a minute. The one that you're about to publish or the...
No. My second book.
The new one. Okay.
Yeah. No, the first one I've got a little finishing touches I'm still doing, but no, the one that I've been writing for a while, I've just realized that there's some very deep rooted issues in the book that I need to fix. And unfortunately, the only way to really do that the way I want to is pretty much starting over.
Well, I know what that feels like.
Yeah, I know you do. But it's a win because it's a decision that's very difficult to make.
But the end result will be better.
For sure, it'll be better. And it's not like I'm losing everything. Like there's still definitely going to be a lot of stuff I can kind of salvage from what I've already done. But it is a lot. It's a lot of work that I'm going to need to redo, but it'll be way better. So
excellent. But I am curious. Speaking of things evolving, What is this show evolving to? What's our topic today?
Yeah, last week you had a mystery topic, and this week I do. So that you don't know about. So we are actually recording, and we have been for a while, recording episodes pretty far ahead of time. And the reason for that is that, as my dad just mentioned in his weekly win, we're coming up on when we're going to be moving. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be moving to different cities. Aj and I are going to be moving about a week before or something like that, before you guys do. We're going to be moving down to Austin, Texas, and I'm really excited about that.
That's cool.
It's going to be great.
Cool town.
But that's a big transition.
Yes, it is.
And it affects all kinds of different things, including this show.
Yes, it will.
Starting next episode, because we're recording this well in advance, like I said. So the next time we record, we're not going to be in the same place. And that'll be the first time we've ever done that. That'll be the first time we've recorded an episode where we're not in the same space. It'll be the first time we're recording an episode that is a video podcast.
Yep. They'll be able to see our faces.
Yeah. It's going to be a whole lot of new and big changes.
Yep.
And so I wanted to just talk about that.
Okay.
Really. Just talk about transitions, talk about big changes. For me, I'm sort of realizing all this stuff about my book, and I'm realizing it right at a time when, life's about to go crazy with the move, and literally 10 days from now is when we're actually moving.
Yeah.
And so what I've been sort of settling on is I'm going to do as much as I can, but I'm also trying to take it as easy on myself as I can, knowing that I've got so much work to do just on the transition itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to focus on that.
That's good.
Because next week for you guys that are listening, and it'll be quite a bit longer than that for us, but still, the next time we meet and do this podcast, things are going to be different. And so dealing with change, dealing with all the things that are involved in change, there's costs to it. We're literally going to need to make some equipment investments to
Correct.
For the podcast to make it work in this new format that we're doing and things like that. So I guess I just wanted to talk about that.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. It is a little bit, the part about this podcast as we look at doing it in a different format. I mean, I have as many questions as I have answers. But I mean, for example, when we go to more of a live podcast where I don't even know if it's going to be exactly live, but we're going to be we're going to be filming. So, I mean, it's going to be here now. It's, if we flub our words and whatever, it's real easy to do kind of a cut and paste. And from an audio perspective, it's not so evident. But on a video side, that will be a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. I mean, the way that the podcast sounds is going to change, right? The way that you guys experience it who are listening, it's going to change. I edit every episode of the podcast pretty heavily.
Yeah.
And I do it as best as I can. There's all sorts of tricks that you can do as an editor to disguise the cuts and make everything sound seamless and stuff. And that's, like you're saying, that's going to be way less possible.
Yeah.
But it's also going to mean that I think it's going to be a good thing. We're going to have just that little bit extra authenticity to it, that little bit extra raw realness, Well,
you'll see what's going on in our eyes. You'll see, those types of things.
And we will still cut some stuff out because sometimes we do just flub our words and stuff, but it's not going to be nearly as much as I do now.
Right. And that actually kind of brings also into mind, I mean, we still want this show to be a conversation, not just between Siah and I, but with you. So we're still looking for ideas that you may have that you want us to talk about success, or even series discussions about success, or about creative, or about pursuing your dreams, or about, being organized, or about being efficient, or, all these things that play in. We want this to be kind of an interaction. So, at some point, we'd love to be able to incorporate some of your questions and discussions. And we do plan to have some interviews at some point in time, too. So that's something that we're looking forward to.
Yeah. And the new format will actually make some of those things easier.
How so?
Well, first, this is getting a little on the technical side. But for example, the software we're going to be using for the new format, it's going to be much easier for us to add another person, right? Instead of them having to, for the most part, physically come out and record with us. Since we're going to be a part ourselves, we're going to be using some software that's designed for that purpose. And so it'll be easier to just be like, hey, let's bring this other person in, Well,
and it also will allow us to be, we do have some of the folks who listen to the show on YouTube. So you'll be able to watch that on YouTube, and that'll be new as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess one question that I would have is, when you think about the changes that are coming forward with both the move and the podcast and those types of things, how does that impact your greater creative work? I mean, you're talking about your book, you're talking about these things. I mean, when we have all these things coming up, I mean, how do you approach that so you don't get overwhelmed?
Well, I think it's what I said earlier about taking it easier on myself and in the midst of the actual transition itself. I'm pretty much assuming for the next like 2 to 2.5 weeks, especially, it's going to be really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And not expecting myself to hit the same metrics or really any metrics at all necessarily on some of those things, just because I won't have the time. I won't have the time. I won't have the energy. On the flip side, I think once we're there, once we're settled, there's going to be so many different ways in which our quality of life is improved. There'll be stress that'll be gone. There'll be stresses added, of course. It's a change. There's going to be pros and cons. But I think that there's kind of a holistic view that I'm really excited. I think our lives are going to improve as a result of the move. And living in this new place. And I think that is going to have positive impacts on all these other areas as well.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Well, I think that when we move, one of the things that I've really been looking at, and actually we had a kind of an extended talk about this, and the fact that I'm kind of taking a creative sabbatical outside of this podcast.
Yeah.
Across several different functions, I'm simplifying, I'm trimming, I'm pruning things that are just not as valuable. I mean, maybe the best way to do that. And, I think that the change, whenever you're making these kind of changes, it kind of points to that. So for example, when we're going through the packing, we're finding things that, like you mentioned in a previous show, that you haven't looked at, haven't needed for 14 months now. So is this really something that you need to keep, get rid of, sell, whatever? Yeah. And it goes beyond that. I think when we get into the new environment, I think that it's going to be an opportunity to establish new patterns, from the standpoint of meeting new people, meeting new outlets. We've done a lot of moving in our lives.
Yeah.
And so change is not atypical for me. And quite frankly, on a professional in my career, a lot of my jobs have been to build new departments, to build or to change things. I mean, so that change management piece is always something new. That said, there's times that it can be exhausting.
Yeah.
And, I wrote in one of my books that there's times that I felt like I was kind of that plow that was kind of running into the rocks and those kind of things and getting dinged up and that kind of stuff. And sometimes it really feels that way. But for the sake of this particular move, I'm not really feeling that way so much. I feel like it's an opportunity to reconnect. We're moving back to an area that we've lived before, so we know some people. We have some connections there. And also family connections that we want to rebuild. So for me, when I look at the change and those types of things, I'm looking at how that's impacting some of those greater things that are important to us. Those reconnections of that, like we did when we've been here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, is we've been able to reconnect with some of my nephew and my nieces and my brother and sister-in-law and those types of things. And that's been good because we've for 30 years we've been living in other places and we really haven't had that opportunity. So for me, that's one of the things that's important in this move and is fruitful in this process.
Yeah.
So when you think about your move to Austin and how that may impact you from the standpoint of pursuing success specifically, I know we talked a little bit about how it impacts you with yourself and you and Audrey, but from a pursuit of success, anything there that you're thinking of that opportunity will give you?
Well, there's a lot of creative community there. A lot of opportunities to get plugged into various groups or events or things like that. Demographically, it's just a much better fit as well, both in, like literal demographics of how old people tend to be and things like that compared to where we live now.
Correct.
Just as well as people that are more like-minded.
Yeah.
My hope is that in all areas of life, but including the success journey, which again, we're the Meaningful Success podcast. Success is holistic. Success is, your personal life affects your professional life, affects your personal life, etc. Like it's success in one area can definitely affect and benefit in others. So from that point of view, I have high hopes for, my success journey there as well. But really, the biggest factor for me with this move is the community opportunities, as well as the people that I already know there.
Yes.
And I'm just really hoping that, come a year from now, like next June or so, in many areas of life, I'm really hoping that things look very different in a positive way, of course. But like as a result of this move, as a result of the people that we know, the opportunities that come up, there's great opportunities for success for Audrey in Austin. My wife, Audrey, is a software developer, and Austin,
that's a good area for that.
Yeah. It's like very, very big software development, technology industry sort of stuff. And so really hoping that she'll be able to find some great stuff there too. Great opportunities and things. And so, just a lot of very hopeful, positive anticipation.
Excellent. Excellent. I guess one question that I would ask, Siah, is when people tune in to the new iteration of the Meaningful Success podcast, other than seeing our faces, is there anything else that they should be thinking about or expecting?
Well, one thing that I'm anticipating is that for a number of reasons, I actually think it's going to be quite a lot easier to produce episodes, even though we're adding a whole new, the video aspect on top of the audio, just from, my experience with working in, production. The way that we're going to be doing it, it may sound counterintuitive, but actually I think that we're going to have opportunity to do even more. I wouldn't be surprised if this enables us to eventually do even more podcasts than we are right now, to be able to, find new ways to explore what does the Meaningful Success podcast even look like? You know, does it evolve? Does it change into something new in some way? I don't really know yet.
Maybe topically or segments or even things that we might explore or incorporate into the show itself.
And the fact that we'll have video option, I mean, obviously podcast is still primarily an audio format thing.
Sure.
But it opens opportunities for us to be able to do certain things like have, you know, a visual aid at times that when people see the video, they can see something, you know,
True.
Like there's all sorts of possibilities and opportunities there.
Excellent. Well, Siah.
Yes.
I'm curious about what is your weekly favorite?
Oh, it's the weekly favorite.
My weekly favorite is actually something that Audrey and I found a few months ago, but I've been trying to take advantage of it as much as I can before we move away. And that is a boba place, a boba tea place that is about 20 minutes from where we live right now. And, you know, there's going to be tons of boba options. I've already looked it up. There's tons of boba tea options.
In Austin.
In Austin, yeah, near where we're going to live. But
well, there were a ton of them in Sacramento when we used to live there, but it's been a little bit limited here.
Yeah, it's very limited. But finally found a good place. Like, I don't know. I'm a little bit picky when it comes to boba places. Like, there's a lot of places that I just don't do it for me. But this place that we found, it's been really good. And it's been nice to have a place where I know, like, okay, I know exactly what I'm getting and that I like what I'm getting in a way that I haven't experienced in a long time.
That's good.
So that's my favorite. And I'm really excited to try out all these other new, I think when I did a search, there was like 13 different boba places within like 10 miles of us where we're moving. So I'm excited to try them all.
That'll be 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
One a day.
Yeah. What is your weekly favorite?
My weekly favorite was lunch on Saturday. We got to go to lunch at this incredible restaurant called Charleston's, and they always deliver. Great service, great food, great company. And Siah and Audrey and Peter and my wife Susanna. So it was a great time, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was very fun. Well, thank you for listening, everyone, to this final audio-only episode of the Meaningful Success podcast.
But tune in for the one after, which will be video.
Yeah, our 35th episode next week will be a video podcast for the first time ever.
Excellent.
So until then, everyone, thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.
See ya.
The Meaningful Success podcast is myself, Siah, and my father, Wade Clark.
That's me.
That's him. Music is Brings Back the Feeling by Daniel Gunnarsson, licensed through Epidemic Sound. If you want to leave us a digital voicemail, you can do so at speakpipe.com/MSP. And if you want to support the show financially, you can do so at patreon.com/Meaningful Success Podcast. Until next week.
See you then.
See you then. Ta-ta for now.